outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, CEO of the Crone Law Firm, and this is a milestone episode for the Ask Alan podcast. We have our first repeat guest, and that is His Excellency, the Lord Mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, Jim Strickland. Jim, Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming on the podcast.
You are welcome. Back by popular demand, is that what it was?
Absolutely. You know, for a long time, you were you had the most views of any podcast, and then you were overtaken by Miles Mason. And yes. And you know who told me that?
Miles Mason.
And then I think you were overtaken by Billy Walk.
Wow.
Yeah, who evidently has a tremendous following.
Both very good lawyers.
Yeah, both very good lawyers. But your segments are always, I say always, the last one was very popular. So
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Any new year is a happy new year this year. Well, let's talk about that. You know, now that you kind of got 2020 in the rearview mirror, and you know, at this taping, it looks like 2021 is going to be a better year because we've got some treatments for the virus and whatnot. From the city's perspective, how did the city do in 2020 with the pandemic?
Well, it's all relative because health-wise and economically, it was just bad. But I do think health-wise, comparatively, it's not as bad as a lot of other cities that I've witnessed. And I think I attribute that to the fact that I think our city as a whole took to masking very quickly and didn't take much enforcement action to really get it the norm. That was our goal, is to make masking the norm, so that if you walked into a grocery store or a drugstore and didn't have a mask on, there would be, you know, unspoken pressure to put a mask on. You know, it was a law, but we still wanted people to do it voluntarily. And we did that early on. I can't remember maybe June or early July. And I think we've, for the most part in Memphis, abided by the protocols and not had big gatherings. I mean, how many times have we seen on the news the Nashville bars just teeming with people and spilling out into Broadway and breaking the rules and not wearing masks? You haven't really seen. We've had one or two parties that kind of slipped through enforcement, but for the most part, people have abided by it. The thing that's gone on really since Thanksgiving, and I think probably until the vaccine is really fully implemented, is family transmission. That's where the transmissions are occurring now. People letting their guard down, children coming home from school or family coming over, and you know, they're family, so they have to be safe, and they're, you know, that's the thought process. And this is going across the country, but I think that's what's happened. That's what's happened in Memphis, and you can't let your guard down, and you have to take all the precautions in the world. Visiting with family, you got to wear a mask. You know, family outside of your home, you got to wear a mask just like you do at work. And so that's the challenge now that we haven't done as good a job on.
I think one thing we're seeing now, in addition to the gatherings, as you say, the family transmissions during Thanksgiving, I think we're seeing the difference between summertime and wintertime in terms of the robustness of the virus. And people kind of forget that. I remember back in March, you know, they talked about how, well, the summer would be better because the virus is not as strong in hot, humid weather as it is in cold, dry weather. And I think that's something maybe a lot of us have forgotten about, is now is just a time when it's going to be more strong just because of the weather. Forget our behavior. The weather is also a factor.
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. But thankfully, the vaccine's out there. We are starting with workers in the hospital, and folks in retirement homes. They're being serviced by Walgreens and CVS. The health department's working on some hospital workers, but the hospitals are actually vaccinating most of their own employees. And then first responders, police and fire. That's what's going to go on probably till mid to late January. And then we'll move on to the next tier of folks, which is the elderly who have some underlying condition. And then it just will grow and grow and grow. And there's also going to be more and more vaccines out there. So I suspect by March or April, it's going to be so many vaccines, so much availability that almost anybody can get it in April and May.
I hope you're right about that. You got to be proud of the way the city employees have responded to the pandemic.
Oh, it's been incredible. Our firefighters, our police officers, our solid waste workers, there's been some significant transmission in those locations because they work so closely with each other. They're either in the same firehouse or the same car or same truck and interact so much that even with masks, it's just masks aren't 100%. So especially when in close proximity. So they've put their health on the line. We have to date, unfortunately, we lost one police officer who died from coronavirus in the early fall, and but no others. And we've had some reduction in services on the solid waste workers because we just couldn't take. It was two different crews who take your recycling and your garbage, and because we were lost so many through isolation or quarantine, we had to combine the two crews. So we still put our recycling in the recycling, but it's actually thrown away in the garbage, and that'll go on hopefully for not too much longer. So we understand there's been a slight interruption in service, but thankfully our workers are taking the precautions and as much as they can remain safe. And we've also had library employees, especially when the libraries were closed, volunteer and do contact tracing. We had 40 or 50 library employees do contact tracing for the health department. We had dozens of community center workers work on food distribution all throughout the summer. If you'll remember, the schools could not do it this summer, so we had a hodgepodge of different groups came together, and our parks employees really picked up there. So people were, not necessarily doing just their duties, but they did other duties to better serve the public.
It also appears to me, kind of from the outside looking in, that you've had a lot of cooperation on the city council with everything from the budget to the flexibility you've talked about, and that's awfully good to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a great working relationship with the city council, but also the county government. Mayor Harris, he and I co-chair the task force. Dr. Householder, head of the health department, is working with Dr. Manoj Jain, who's our city medical advisor. We've all worked together. Doug McGowan and Dewan Gilliam, who are the COOs of county and city government, are doing the legwork and most of the work getting everyone together. The hospitals, the schools. We have a task force that includes nonprofits, the schools, all the hospitals. We have 2 phone calls a week, Tuesday and Friday mornings. And talk about all these issues and coordinate, which is really important. And what we've learned is that this amount of cooperation is unusual. These other cities are not seeing that kind of cooperation. And so I'm thankful that everyone's working really well together, because the public needs us all to work. It's hard enough if we're working together. If there was acrimony or backbiting, it'd be so much harder.
That's true. That's true. And that's really been the case, I think, from the very, very beginning. And I've been involved a little bit on the state level, and you're right. I won't mention any names, but there's some communities that they don't see eye to eye on how to proceed. And it's, I think it's been to the detriment of the public.
Yeah, and I've left out the mayors of the other cities in Shelby County. They have really stepped up, and I'm not saying all the mayors of the cities have not always agreed with individual rulings of the health department, but what we've tried to do is be supportive, because it's not 100. These issues are not so clear, and there's no bright line. It's just using your best judgment. And what we try to do is support the health department as much as we can. And if you disagree, you disagree. But at the end of the day, you got to move on and try to drive our numbers as low as we can. And again, comparatively, our numbers in Shelby County over the last couple months have been good, favorably compared to the other 94 counties in the state.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you think there's going to be fruit from this down the road? In other words, do you think that some good will come out of this whole process, whether it's better cooperation between governments or something that we've learned through this process that will help us down the road?
Well, I think no doubt. And I'll even go back a couple of years ago now, maybe 3 or 4 years, when Amazon was bidding out their second headquarters. I guess it might have been my second year as mayor. Mayor Luttrell called all the mayors and all the chambers together in the county, and we made a joint bid, and we worked together. And I'll never forget, I walked out of a meeting at Shelby Farms, and one of the suburban chamber presidents and I were walking out to our cars, and he said, I've never been, since I've been chamber president for X number of years, I've never had all the mayors and all the governments in the same room working on the same project. I think that kind of helped pave the way to this. One thing I've really come to appreciate the mayors of these other cities. Mayor McDonald's been mayor for a long time. I don't even know how long, 16 years or so probably. And he's very knowledgeable, very detail oriented. But Mayor Palazzolo and Mayor Joyner from Germantown, Collierville, respectively, we all get along. And then you got, of course, then you have Millington, Lakeland, and Arlington, which aren't as big as those other cities, but have really good leadership and people who work together. And so I think that hopefully that Amazon experience is translated in this, which will translate into, because economic development is a team effort, and it's a regional thing. If Collierville gets an employer there with 400 employees, that's good for this entire region. And Harold Bird, who's kind of the suburban chambers have like an association, and Harold governs that. And we met a year or two ago, and I said, if you're calling on a company, Bartlett or Arlington or whatever, and Memphis is not in the mix, I don't mind making the call with you and try to promote it, because I want all these cities to prosper, because it just helps us all. Bartlett is building a new Tennessee College of Applied Technology. but that's going to help us all regionally, because you get people trained up in technical skills. They may live in Bartlett, but a bunch of them are going to live in Memphis, and just because a company is downtown Memphis, people who live in counties all around, the same thing's true if the company's based in Germantown.
Right, and those people, even if they don't live in Memphis, shop in Memphis, go to Grizzlies games, go to the rendezvous or whatnot, and yeah, so and I think if you look around the country, I'd be interested in your perspective on this, but if you look around the country, the communities that really seem year in and year out to grow and prosper are the ones that have a unified effort, like Atlanta and Nashville, Indianapolis, Louisville. Those are all communities where they either have like Nashville has a consolidated government, and I don't want to get into a conversation about consolidated government, but what I'm really talking about is coordinated government, where all these people work together.
Yeah. Even if you're not formally consolidated, you ought to work together. Atlanta is the long term, because they've been really unified in their efforts since the 70s, and really showed other cities how it should have been done by bringing Black, white, suburbs, city folks all together. And you and I have talked about this a lot. Memphis was bigger than Atlanta. The Memphis area was bigger than the Atlanta area in the early 1960s. And now they're 4 or 5 times larger than us. And, not that size is everything, but you would like a growing city. Nashville is a good example. They did consolidate in the 60s, but what they did was they had, I think, 3 really good mayors in a row. Phil Bredesen, starting in somewhere in the early 90s, I can't really remember. Then Bill Purcell, and then Carl Dean. And they each served 8 years, so 24 years of really good mayors. And that's why, in my opinion, you see the growth now. It didn't happen overnight. Mayor Bredesen brought the Houston Oilers to Nashville, and that was a visible sign that things had changed in Nashville, and you saw this growth going on. Now, I know there's a lot of consternation in Nashville about the rate of growth, and maybe the rate is going too fast, but you do want growth, and that's one of the goals that I have for Memphis. At 50 years of population loss, we need to start growing a little bit. We've slowed down the loss dramatically, and I do think more people are optimistic about the future of Memphis, which is one of the things to do, but we still need to grow.
Right, and I think you did the Memphis 3.0 plan, and that's a good start. And I think one discussion we need to have, it's interesting, is about growth inside the city and what that means as far as density and traffic and accessibility and all of that, what that portends, because you see it, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but you see a particular development that is going to increase density, which of course increases traffic, and the people that are there now say, "Oh, we don't want that," but that's kind of what we need. How do you think that's going to get balanced out as we go over the next 10 years?
Well, it's tough because as a whole, neighborhood leaders, single family homes, do not like density, and the way cities grow the best is some kind of density. So Memphis 3.0 was kind of a roadmap on how that should happen, and I think it does a good job of showing the corridors where it could happen. It wouldn't happen in the middle of a neighborhood, but on Poplar, on East Parkway. I'm thinking right now of where multifamily housing is being built on East Parkway, on Poplar, on Madison. Some has been built on Union recently. when you think about it, we hadn't had an apartment building built in Memphis outside, a new one built in Memphis outside of downtown in 30 or 40 years. But now we have many being built, and young people need somewhere to start off living. And these nice apartment buildings, I think, help in that. But we also need more single family housing. And you see some things going on in Fraser and Whitehaven, where we're trying to encourage single family housing. Fraser, this is pre-pandemic is what I'm talking about, but Fraser, for the first time in decades, the property values for the last couple of years had gone up in Fraser. They have a great CDC out there that partnered with government and to help seed some of that housing. So, and we've worked really hard on a quality, affordable housing. We've incentivized over 5,000 quality, affordable housing units in Memphis, all throughout the city over the last couple of years. But we have thousands more to go. So, it's important to improve the quality of life, give people somewhere to live, but that balancing act, it's tough. And, the council is where all those battles end up. If a property is not zoned for it, they're going to have to go in front of council and have discussions.
That's right. When you look around the country, are there other mayors or communities that you think are good role models or that you look to for inspiration?
Sure. I look at other cities and their mayors. For the most part, they're cities similar to Memphis, New Orleans, St. Louis, Louisville, Milwaukee, but also Atlanta, Chicago, cities that are bigger. Kansas City's about our size. So what I do sometimes
have a lot in common.
Yes. And sometimes what I do is I look at their Twitter accounts and what initiatives they're tweeting about. And then if there's something interesting that I want to dig deep into, I look at it and, go on the internet and print it off and read it. And you pick up tidbits all the time. Some programs really big, some others that are small. We stole or copied a program out of the city out west just escaped my mind, but they had a program where they would government and the nonprofits would get together and drive a bus around and talk to the panhandlers and say, hey, instead of panhandling for pennies, we will pay you to pick up blight and clean up the area. And we copied it verbatim, and we're running it now successfully in Memphis for 5 to 7 days a week. This is pre-pandemic. I'm not 100% sure what they've done through the pandemic, but the better thing about it is not only are you helping these men and women earn some money, some of these men and women have taken that step and then taken the next step to find a more permanent, real career, which is really heartening. So basically taking somebody from the street to a temporary paycheck to a more permanent career. But those are things you learn from other cities. You learn from their challenges. All these cities have challenges to one degree or another. Right now they're all struggling to hire police officers. It's a real challenge to go on. But I like to just kind of see what other folks are doing and how they're handling situations, and avoid their pitfalls and copy their successes.
Sure. Well, kind of transitioning into maybe some lighter topics. I know that one of the initiatives that you revived over the holidays and may still be going on now is the the support of local restaurants through a takeout initiative. Tell me a little bit about that and how it's gone.
Actually, this is a great segue because I got this idea from the mayor of Arlington, Texas, who I've gotten to know, Jeff Williams, and he's a good mayor. And we did it this spring, and it was called the Mayor's Meals Challenge. And I put some money from my campaign and gave it to the, pledged it to the Mid-South Food Bank. And every time somebody posts on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter that they went to a restaurant, take a picture of the meal and put hashtag Mayor's Meal Challenge, we'll donate $25 to the food bank. And in the spring, and it had twofold. Number one, there's a lot of people out of work and relying on the food bank way more than normal. And number two, it helps our struggling local restaurants. So we did it in the spring. It worked really well. A lot of people supporting their local restaurants, and we raised $38,000 to $40,000 for the food bank. So my original $2,500, other people started pledging, and we started it up right before Christmas because again, our restaurants are really struggling, and the food bank needs more money. So we want to raise thousands of dollars for that. So it's just take something to go, eat in, take a picture of the meal, and just hashtag Mayor's Meal Challenge, and we'll get $25 more to the food bank, and that helps people all over, and it's just a nice little way to help.
Well, and I think, to your point, just a small anecdote from me. I participated a couple of times, probably more than a couple, but one in particular, we went to, my family ordered from Joe's Fried Chicken there on Highland, and I did the meal challenge. And I had two people in the comments say, "Oh, I don't know anything about that. I'm going to go," and then they ended up going. So it's a great advertising.
Right.
What better advertising than to say, "Hey, I'm eating there right now." So hopefully during this time we can mitigate a little bit the problems the restaurants are having and that people are having with food scarcity.
And Joe's is a great example. It's locally owned. They are going to have to move. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw that, yeah.
A church is going to be built there, but they're going to, I think, move somewhere Poplar Perkins area. But my wife and I tried the restaurant in Novel Bookstore, and I cannot remember the name of the restaurant, but it's really good. And the food bank, I can't tell you how much they appreciate. Kathy Pope is the relatively new president of the food bank, and she's doing a great job. But I mean, she got this job about a year ago, before the pandemic, and never envisioned that she's probably working 7 days a week, and they got an incredible staff there. We operated our annual Christmas basket giveaway there for the last 2 years. And it's a great location off of Perkins, South Perkins.
Yeah, so that's been a great effort, and there are just lots of efforts going on like that around town, and it's what makes Memphis Memphis. We sometimes we're hard on ourselves, but we're always kind to each other, and it's just one of the great reasons I love being a Memphian is how people are helping each other out. Incredible
giving city. We're always ranked 1 or 2 per capita in charitable giving, and just good people.
Well, let's stay in that University of Memphis area since we're talking about Joe's. You and I are both proud graduates, double graduates of Memphis State University, now known as University of Memphis, and you've got a child who's a legacy there, just started this year. Is that right?
Yes. Of course, under a whole different circumstances. It was 100% virtual for him. And I know you have 2 in college. Were they 100% virtual?
They were. In the spring, they both were going to college in my house. One is in Chattanooga, and one is in Chicago, but they were both living in my house, which was, I don't think they enjoyed it very much, but I really enjoyed having the family home. That was really one of the big blessings for me for the pandemic is I had all 5 of my family members under the one roof for longer than I thought I would. So that was great. But this fall, they both went to Chicago and Chattanooga respectively, and then went to school online. So I don't know exactly what the point of that was. But it certainly, it just seems to me, even before the pandemic, that college is a lot different. I'm going to sound like an old man here, but the college is a lot different now than when we were in, and the University of Memphis is a lot different than when we were there.
I think it's a better school than when you and I were there in the 80s, for academically to the look of the campus, the feel of the campus, the area around the campus. The old Highland Row is better than it was when we were there. A lot nicer restaurants and places to go. The private housing opportunities around the campus are so much better than they were. Dr. Rudd has just been a fantastic president. I'm very fortunate that my term as mayor has overlapped with his as president of the University of Memphis. Athletics is better. I mean, occasionally our football team would be okay and our basketball team would be good, but they never were, pretty good at both at the same time. And who would have ever thought that we'd gone to the Cotton Bowl, which we did last year. So it's just, and I do think academically it's better. It's on that U.S. News and World Report rankings, they're moving up. The facilities are so much better. And I know some of that was Dr. Raines before Dr. Rudd and so forth, but it's become a much better institution.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it seems like every time you turn around, the university is announcing a new partnership. Just recently, right before Christmas, they announced a partnership with Methodist Hospital and UT to train minority physicians. And, that just has exponential effect in terms of the reputation of the university, but also the impact in Memphis to have growth in the number of medical professionals in the African-American community. That's hard to put a measure on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's opportunities have not always existed for African Americans in that regard, and we have a long way to make up for it. And I'm proud that our alma mater is leading the way in that. But that also brings up the nursing school over what used to be called the South Campus. I think it's the Park Avenue campus now. It's fantastic.
And that was kind of Shirley Raines' signature project, was getting that nursing school, the building built and the nursing school built up.
The Scheidt School of Music is being built right now on Central. That's going to be really good. So it's just, I'm happy my son decided to go to the school there, and I really didn't pressure him one way or the other. We toured a lot of schools, and including where your oldest son went, Arkansas, which is a fantastic school. So schools all over are just better. I mean, the facilities are better. There's just more money spent and making things better. But it ought to get better over the years.
I will tell you that most of the housing that my children have lived in college is better than my first house. I don't know where you go from some of these places.
Life may be disappointing.
It may be. It may be. But it just the level of competition in order to get the students, they're having to throw money at facilities and everything else. It's just, It's really amazing. And our city is going to really reap the rewards for it, because the just one example, the capability of that new music building is going to provide a lot of performance opportunities that we just don't have here. And so that's going to be that's going to be great. And I know you're proud to have James at your, as you say, at your alma mater, and it brings back, every time I drive down there, it does bring back a lot of memories. I was thinking, there must be now 5 or 6 parking garages on that campus. And when I ran unsuccessfully for the Student Government Association presidency, trying to follow one James Strickland as president, I got embroiled in a controversy about parking garages, and I was on the wrong side of that issue from a populist standpoint. And my main reason was student government didn't have anything to do with whether or not there was a parking garage going to be built. My first lesson in politics, that just because you don't have anything to do with it doesn't mean you can't run on it. And the guy who beat me, not that I'm bitter, but the guy who beat me left school 3 months in, and our good friend Jay Bailey became the SGA president, who probably was going to be a better SGA president than me anyway. But that always rankled me a little bit, that the guy who beat me left not even midterm. I mean, just almost before he moved into the office. But I guess that just really, I guess my point is it really does show how that campus has changed so dramatically in 30 years.
And what one thing that Dr. Rudd and Ted Townsend, who works for the university, but also is now head of our chamber recruiting efforts for economic development. But one thing they've done a really good job, and I think you and I noticed it when we'd go up to Nashville and talk to the legislators and the governor's staff, the universities, the opinion of the university is pretty high among the legislators. And when back when we were in school and you and I interned up in Nashville, it was not the case.
Right.
UT is still the flagship for the state, but the University of Memphis has risen dramatically, and you see some positive results of that. The new engineering school that is coming along, and we're also starting to have more and more graduates in the state legislature, either from law school or from undergraduate, and that helps too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All right, again, going a little more informal here. The people want to know. This is something that people ask me all the time about you. It comes in all kinds of different ways, but it basically boils down to this. What do you think are the top 3 coolest things about being mayor? David Letterman back in the day had these top 10 lists. I'm gonna let you do a top 3 list. What are the top 3 coolest things about being mayor?
All right, these won't be as funny as David Letterman, and they also, I'm taking out the serious things of making people's lives better and serving and all that kind of stuff, but just not necessarily frivolous, but just extras. Number 1, I've gotten to meet a lot of interesting celebrities, sports figures. When I first got elected, there was an article written about me, and they said, who was my childhood hero? I said it was Johnny Bench. I grew up a big Cincinnati Reds fan in the 1970s when they were so good. Well, someone mailed that article to Johnny Bench. So he called here, and we talked for about 15 minutes, as nice as he could be. And that's just neat. Had I not been mayor, I would not, that's cool. So just that, and there have been other people like that from elected officials in Washington, United States senators, to the vice president, the future president coming up here in a little bit, Vice President Pence. It's just a lot of those. I'd say number 2 is I've gotten to do some really cool things. I got to be graduation speaker for the University of Memphis in December of 18, I think. Also got to do that at Christian Brothers University, and they awarded me an honorary doctorate, and that, it's cool. And really appreciate that. Obviously, alma mater that I love, and Christian Brothers University. I didn't go there, but I did go to Christian Brothers High School, and there's certainly a relationship there, and they're an incredible institution in Memphis for 150 years. You think about that. And third, one is this office. I'm looking at your office. You have the nicest lawyer's office I know of. It's so beautiful. This office, I wish I could turn the camera around. It's just a really nice office, and I get to work here every day. So I mean, and there's so many other things. I've loved this job. I got 3 more years. We're going to finish strong, but it's the greatest job that I'll ever have.
Well, I was privileged to be with you when you met Senator Corker. I maybe not met him, but you met with him. And every time we would meet with him, he always said being mayor of a city is the best job in the world. He, of course, had been mayor of Chattanooga, and he knew what a difference you could make in that job, and how, just how fun it can be. And fun may be the wrong word, particularly at some of the really serious and dark times that you've had to navigate through. But I know you've said before, and I think you're right. It's the one job in politics where you really get a lot done every day, and you just don't get to do that in other political jobs.
It's just harder. Yeah, it's harder. And you think about that. Senator Corker was a senator for 12 years. He was high ranking for sure. And that 12 years, he thought 4 years as mayor of Chattanooga was more fulfilling than 12 years as the United States Senator.
That's true. That's true. Now, speaking to Memphis City Hall, a lot of people don't get a chance to, or opportunity, or really even the inclination to wander around Memphis City Hall. But it really is a great building, and any number of people who visited, particularly your office, are just kind of blown away by the view of the expansive view of the Mississippi River and what I call Lake Memphis when the Arkansas side floods all the way to the levee, and it just looks like one big lake. There are not many city halls in the country that have that kind of view.
No, not at all. We are very fortunate. It has been so good, and you've been in the room when we have floated this to developers. If they wanted to buy City Hall for the views, there's no reason necessarily City Hall has to be here. We could build somewhere else downtown. No one has taken us up on that offer yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if one day that happened. Although, this building may be becoming historic now that's 52 years old or so, but it's also having age issues for a 52-year-old building too. But it is a prime development location if that were ever. And you and I have been in the St. Louis City Hall in the mayor's office. It is blocks from the river. It's a beautiful building, but the view is not quite as good.
No, it's not. But you kind of take things as you get them, I guess. But we're about out of time. Any projects you want to talk about, or things that you think are going to make a splash in 2021 we should be looking at?
Yeah, I think hopefully we'll break ground on what most people refer to as the fairgrounds. We've kind of rechristened it as Liberty Park, and the stadium's going to stay there, the Coliseum, the schools, all that's going to stay there. But we're going to build a youth sports complex. Both you and I had children who played competitive sports. It is a crazy world, and people travel virtually all year long outside of a pandemic, and going to towns to play basketball or volleyball or cheer or soccer. And it's an incredible generator. And we don't have a good place we have good places for competitive baseball. We got the fields in Cordova. We got the fields in North Mississippi. We have great soccer locations, Mike Rose Soccer Complex. We don't have great indoor basketball or volleyball or cheer facilities for big tournaments where you can play 20 games at a time or 15 games at a time. When you have tournaments here, you have to be in several different locations. So we're going to try to break ground on that. We've been planning on that on the old Liberty Land site. And then kind of our version of what do they call it in St. Louis next to the stadium?
Ballpark Village.
Ballpark Village. Our sort of version, it wouldn't be quite as glitzy as that, but it have some restaurants, a hotel, apartment building, so that, to generate some activity and interest, places where the kids could go when their games aren't going on, and also be used for the University of Memphis Tiger football fans. Something to bring some more excitement there. That actually, you think about it, the whole football experience is so much better now than when we were in school, not only on the field, but off the field, because of actions of our former council colleague, Reed Hedgebeth, who kind of led the way to get Tiger Lane built. So we're just trying to take it to the next step and make it really nice and generate a lot of economic activity. And then when it's not used for these tournaments, then the kids in the adjacent neighborhoods near Orange Mound can use it as a really nice community center.
Well, that's going to be a great addition to that part of town. And I had two sons who played a lot of competitive basketball, and we participated in a lot of tournaments in Memphis, and you hit it on the head. We had people coming into town, but it was diffused. You'd be in a gym here, gym there, and to have all of that in one place, in a TDZ and a TIF that will direct money to good causes, it's gonna be a great thing. I think that once it takes off, I can see a lot of skeptics because it's new, but I think it's one of those things that once it takes off, it will seem like it was a no-brainer, because I think it is a no-brainer.
Perfect example of that is the FedEx Forum. You and I remember that was controversial. You and I weren't involved in politics then.
Right.
We were involved in politics, but at a very introductory level, helping people win races. But it was,
which is a nice way of saying nobody listened to what we had to say.
But people had yard signs against the FedEx Forum. Now, 20 years later, you couldn't find anybody who said, "Oh yeah, I was against it," because it's been such a big success.
Yeah, and that's the way a lot of these things are, and you just got to have the leadership and the vision to put them out there, and then when they succeed, don't not to be too much of a gloater.
Right.
But Mayor, I really appreciate your time. I know everybody listening to this appreciates it, and I just want to congratulate you on a hell of a first year of a second term. I mean, you lose a couple key staff people, and there's a pandemic, and the whole world goes to heck in a handbasket. But you've done a great job in overcoming all of that and keeping us on track. And I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that 2021, a year from now, we'll be sitting looking back at all the great things that happened in 2021.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But until that vaccine is, fully out there by, May, June, July, you got to wear masks, wash hands, even if you get the vaccine. So please take the vaccine, and please continue to wear that mask.
I will, and I hope everyone will. And give my best to all my friends in City Hall and all my enemies in City Hall, whoever they may be. All right, well, very good. I appreciate everybody watching. If you've enjoyed this, and who are we kidding? Of course you enjoyed it. It was a great show. Please share it or like it on social media and email it to your friends if you got it via email. Subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time on Ask Alan. I'm going to go out and try to get a little justice.